Peter Groenewald, South Africa's Minister of Correctional Services, stood before Parliament with a voice that carried both fire and fearlessness as he revealed shocking numbers that left the entire nation stunned. Over 33,000 cell phones, hundreds of kilograms of drugs, and thousands of pieces of contraband seized from prisons in a sweeping series of raids. For viewers unfamiliar with South Africa's turbulent correctional system, this revelation did not come out of nowhere. For years, prisons across the country have been accused of becoming breeding grounds for crime rather than institutions of rehabilitation. Allegations of gangs running operations from behind bars have plagued the system, but never before had a sitting minister pulled back the curtain with such unflinching precision. The story begins with Groenewald's decision to authorize nearly 500 unannounced raids across correctional facilities. These weren't symbolic gestures or controlled inspections. These were real, raw, and unexpected strikes at the heart of corruption. What his teams uncovered was nothing short of horrifying. Inmates armed with phones to coordinate crimes, cash stashed away, and drugs flowing freely within prison walls. As he laid out the evidence, Peter Groenewald didn't mince his words. He declared outright that corruption had infested South Africa's prisons, and he vowed a zero-tolerance war against it. For many South Africans, long skeptical of politicians' promises, this sounded different. It wasn't rhetoric, it was hard data, hard evidence, and a hard line drawn in the sand. But how did the system reach this breaking point? For decades, South African prisons have battled overcrowding, underfunding, and deep-rooted corruption. Guards themselves have often been implicated in smuggling contraband, while criminal networks treat prison as just another headquarters. By the time Groenewald stepped into office, many believed the system was on the verge of collapse. This is why the discovery of over 33,000 illegal cell phones is so terrifying. Each phone represented a lifeline for gangs to coordinate drug trafficking, armed robberies, and even political hits from inside prison walls. Imagine it. Prisons meant to contain crime instead became command centers for expanding it. Groenewald's raids didn't just expose phones. They unearthed 232 kilograms of drugs. Think about that for a moment. Drugs not seized at the border, not on the streets, but inside supposedly secure correctional facilities. It confirmed what whistleblowers had said for years. The line between inmates and the outside underworld was paper-thin. Ordinary citizens have long suspected this, but to hear it confirmed in Parliament, with exact numbers and undeniable evidence, hit home in a way that rumors never could. Mothers whose children are trapped in drug addiction, families who've lost loved ones to violent crime, and communities terrorized by gangs suddenly saw the connection. The rot inside prisons fuels the chaos outside. And it wasn't just drugs and phones. Officials seized nearly 400,000 rand in cash, hidden away by inmates. That figure alone begged a chilling question. If prisoners can accumulate that much money while behind bars, who exactly is enabling them, and how far does this corruption stretch? Public reaction was immediate. Some citizens expressed outrage, demanding that Groenewald not stop at raids but pursue prosecutions of corrupt officials. Others voiced fear. If this level of corruption exists in the correctional system, what does it mean for the safety of ordinary South Africans living outside prison walls? Did you expect this twist, that the very institutions designed to protect society are instead fueling its collapse? Within Parliament, reactions were mixed. Allies of Groenewald praised his courage, calling it one of the most transparent and decisive actions ever taken by a correctional services minister. Critics, however, accuse him of grandstanding, suggesting that raids would not be enough without deep structural reforms. But Groenewald was not backing down. He promised a full-scale war against corruption within prisons, saying these raids were only the beginning. His tone carried the weight of someone who understood both the risks and the enemies he was making. In a country where whistleblowers are often targeted, such boldness does not come without danger. This moment matters because it touches every South African life. When gangs run operations from prison, neighborhoods suffer. When drugs flow freely from inside, streets become battlefields. When corrupt officials enrich themselves, trust in justice collapses. Groenewald's revelations force the nation to face an uncomfortable truth. Prisons are not just failing, they are actively endangering society. International observers have also taken note. Reports of South Africa's crime rates often shock the world, and the exposure of systemic corruption in prisons only adds to the country's fragile reputation. Investors, human rights groups, and even foreign governments are watching closely, waiting to see if these words turn into real reform. How would your community respond if you discovered criminals were running operations from inside government institutions? Would anger be enough, or would people take to the streets demanding change? Groenewald's decision to reveal the raw numbers, instead of hiding behind vague promises, was a gamble. He chose transparency, and in doing so, he put the entire correctional system under a spotlight that cannot be dimmed. For many South Africans, this is a moment of reckoning. It's no longer enough to shrug and say, "That's just how it is." The statistics cannot be ignored, and the stakes could not be higher. Some argue this could spark real reform, the kind that finally breaks the cycle of corruption. Others fear it could trigger backlash, with corrupt officials digging in their heels to protect their power and profit. The next few months will determine which direction South Africa takes. Peter Groenewald has cast himself as a warrior against corruption, but the battle is only beginning. Prisons are just one part of the puzzle. Justice, policing, and political will are equally critical. Whether he emerges as a reformer remembered for saving a collapsing system, or just another politician making empty promises, will depend on what happens next. South Africa now faces a choice. Will it confront the corruption within its own walls, or allow the cancer to keep spreading until the line between justice and crime disappears completely? This is more than a political story. It is a story about the soul of a nation, the future of its children, and the fight for justice in a land too often scarred by betrayal.
So what do you think?
Has Peter Groenewald finally drawn the line against corruption, or is this just another chapter in a much deeper tragedy? If this story moved you, don't just watch in silence. Like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more gripping real-life stories that cut to the heart of South Africa's struggle for truth and justice. Together, your voice keeps these stories alive.